Get ready to put your happy faces on whilst you listening to The Grumble from musterxmedia, a place you can be happy whilst being a miserable bastard. If you're easily offended, this podcast is not for you, but if you're not, enjoy! Hello and welcome to The Grumble from musterxmedia. My name is Paul and this is our first podcast of its kind, and I just want to tell you what this podcast is about. Well, it's near enough self-explanatory. It's the grumble. I'm going to be here having a good old grumble, and you can either listen to it or not. If you think I'm a whinging old bastard, just turn it off. There's a door you can use it. If, however, you want to hear my grumble and then you want to leave a comment, etc., let me know. You can contact me on Parler if it's open by the time this has gone out, because the controversy over that since Amazon has suspended its hosting. But my Parler handle is at XReview from my YouTube channel, which is also aptly named the X Review. You also have my Twitter handle, which is at Media Muster, and you can find me on Facebook by typing in musterxmedia. What am I going to grumble about? Well, I had to think about this because something really pissed me off last night, and that was the cops coming along to the car park of the park and stopping people from driving up to park up and go for their walk. Now you may say, yeah, well, exercise has to start from the home and end at the home. Yes, that is understandable, but say for example you're in a wheelchair or you live on an icy hill and you're old and decrepit, do they expect you to walk up a steep icy hill to get home? Nah, that's not right. You need to be able to drive, and the law states that you have to do it within a certain mileage of your local vicinity. So it's okay for you to drive to the supermarket, but you can't drive to the park, which is an open air place, and there's a very minimum chance of catching the old corona, and yet the police are pulling people up, turning them around, and even dishing out fines in this area. It's a disgrace, and for me it just feels like a lot of these police officers have now got a free license to go around victimising people, because these people, the police officers that is, feels to me that they were bullied at school. Well, the ones that are going off doing this and other escapades, which we'll go into later on. But it feels like that these police officers are just trying to make up for lost time for being bullied at school, and are taking out everything on the local public, the people who they are paid to actually protect, to serve. They're public servants. They should be doing what we ask them to do, not telling us what we can and can't do, because that's not consent. The police are there and work through consent, and yet they're going around lording it over people at the moment. Another example, over this park you have a skate park area, and there's signs up saying that it's closed, you're not allowed to go there, but kids still do, and I don't see why they're not allowed to, because yet again it's open air. It's not as if it's inside, it's not as if it's constantly packed, but kids are getting busted by the cops for exercising. And I say this because riding a bike to do some tricks, to do some stunts, is still exercise. If you're on a skateboard and you're doing some tricks and whatnot, it doesn't matter, that's still exercise. And yet they're not allowed to do it on the outside because they may get corona or give corona to someone else, which is bullshit, because it's no different to riding a bike. It just happens that these kids can do a trick because they've got the apparatus there to allow them to do these tricks. So the only difference, and yet these poor kids are getting busted by the cops all the time and treated like absolute garbage and getting criminal records because these coppers who just simply have chips on their shoulders because they get a power trip and a kick out of being all superior, and it really fucking pisses me off. It's like the other day, it was on the news. I say on the news, the real news this is, i.e. news that's on YouTube, Facebook, the new media, shall we say. I'm part of new media, like lots of other people are new media, because the mainstream media, or shall we say the legacy media, the nobodies, no one watches the legacy media no more. But this story was all over the new media. A woman was given a £200 fine for sitting on a bench by the beach while she's having her coffee with her mum, and her mum was in her 80s. £200 fine for having a break because they were loitering and could spread the virus, which is another fucking lie. But yet the police, who would go straight into these people's personal space, breaking the 2-metre rule, being super spreaders themselves, it's a contradiction. But it's okay for the police to huddle together because apparently the virus does not affect the police officers. No, but when someone, J Public, does what the police are doing themselves, they're the super spreaders, not the police. Police dish out the fines or arrest you for sitting down on a bench and having a little break from your little bit of exercise, opening up your flask, having a bit of a drink. And no, that's not allowed. That's illegal. But only it's not illegal. There's nothing illegal about it. It's just some renegade cops, and they're all becoming renegade cops at the moment, all of them, because they get that little bit of extra power and they get the thrill and the kick out of being horrible, mean bastards. I'm not saying that all cops are bad. I'm not saying all cops are doing this. I'm saying that it's the few, the minority of them, that's given them all a bad name. And because we are only seeing the minority of these scumbags doing this to the local people, to the people who these cops serve, that's what's giving them a bad name. And eventually it's going to come to a head, and the police are going to have to draw a line and saying we're doing this or we're not, because they will eventually get people against them. And this is no incitement, this is just a fact. The way how the minority of these coppers that are going around brutalising the population because they feel that they've got the right to do so, it's only going to work against them, because eventually people will say no. There is a snapping point, and there's only so far you can push someone, least of all an English person, or shall we just say British person. Doesn't matter what colour skin you are. The British population is made up of many different races, but we've all got that one collective breaking point. Enough will be enough. And when it becomes enough, what do you think's going to happen? What do the police think is going to happen? Because it's slowly happening. They're slowly breaking people, and people will say no, we're not going to be policed like this. We are not going to be doing this. We are not going to let you drag an old man to the floor and arrest him because he didn't want to wear a mask, which is dubious information anyways. Because even still today you got people, scientists shall we say, coming out saying that masks are not actually offering anyone protection at all. And this debate is still going on, but it just seems like they only went with the masks was to shut the fuck up out of the legacy media, the same legacy media hacks who have all been proven to be liars themselves and hypocrites, like Piers Morgan and even Kay Burley, the same people who advocate these rules and holding the general population to account and treating them like garbage, were the same people who broke the rules and videoed and even having photos taken breaking the rules. But yet it's rules for thee and not for me, because the legacy media are the people who perpetrate all this fear. This pandemic would not be anywhere near as bad if the media shut the fuck up and stop acting as though they're the judge, jury and executioner, because that's what they're trying to be. That's what they're trying to be, and it's not on. They've destroyed the psyche of an entire nation to sell their news, their twisted, distorted version of the news. I wonder how many people can actually remember the original plan of the British government, and that was for herd immunity. And then that soon changed. Because all the media had a meltdown, had a massive tantrum, and this tantrum was in certain newspapers. It was definitely on Good Morning Britain with Piers, Karen, Fat Bastard Morgan, and Twitter, the Twitter sphere, the toxicity of the world exists on Twitter. They had a field day, they had a meltdown, a full-blown tantrum, because we were going down the same route as what Sweden was. And Sweden, yes, they've had a death rate. They've had less people die of corona than we have over here per population density. Yeah, there's less people over in Sweden, yes, but for the same density of population they've had less, and they didn't lock down at all, not at all. So the only country in the whole of the European continent that didn't nuke its economy was Sweden. And that was the route that we were going through, but Boris Johnson and his other douchebags lost their nerve to legacy media, who then decided to fear porn the entire nation. And 10 months on, soon to be 11, and it will roll on to a year once all these lockdowns finish, lockdown 3 for the UK, and they're just going to carry it on, because fear keeps people glued to their seats, bums on seats at home, watching their shit so they get their ad revenue, and that's all it's about. That's all it's about. Lots of shit that fucking pisses people off, and people have had enough of it now. Now, personally, for me, these lockdowns could all end overnight. And all that has to be done is everyone to turn around and say, no, we're not doing this. No, we're not afraid. And all we need to do is keep the vulnerable shielded and protected and looked after. Kids can go back to school, adults can go back to work. We still keep those who are vulnerable locked away safely, following strict procedures so they don't get infected, because after all, it is a 98.9% chance of you surviving this without any long-term effects. It's just a vast majority of people who have died had other conditions as well. You died with coronavirus, not from coronavirus. There's only been a small amount of people under the age of 60, i.e. in their hundreds, not thousands, not tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands like they all predicted. So yeah, more sauce for the goose. One day there will be an inquiry about this. Members of the government will be tried for this, for crimes against humanity. That's my personal opinion. Whether or not it will happen is another thing. It's another thing to be debated. But the other people that be investigated will be the police, because the insanity of what they're doing, the absolute insanity of it, of them manhandling old people to the floor to arrest them for daring to have an opinion. The same police officers who hand out fines because people are outside, sat on benches having a fucking drink. Not even a bevy, as in an alcoholic beverage. We're talking about a hot drink. Handing out fines for a walk into a remote place where there's no one there is there. They're all going to be held to account one day. And one day, people will turn around and say, look, I was just following orders. It's not an adequate reason behind what you have done. People are losing faith in the police force as we speak on a daily basis, and the police are not helping themselves out. But then again, the government are not helping out the police either, so it's a lose-lose for the old bill. But all it takes is the police commissioners, the head police officer from each area to say, no, we are not doing this, no, that is ridiculous, shove it up your arse, we're just going to treat people like we always have done. But no, you got the renegades that are in every police force, just going, destroying the respect that the public once had for them. So that's my grumble for the day. It's evolved a little bit, but that's what I'm grumbling about. Let me know what you guys think. As I said, you can always send me a message on Twitter, Parler if it's up and running up from the time of this recording, and even Facebook. Take care and bye for now. If you like this podcast, we have another one called A Tribute to Men That Hate Their Jobs. This is an over-dramatised story channel where the narrator gets into daily mishaps in a job that he hates. The link is in the description. In addition, we also have a YouTube channel called The X Review, where I review and react to music videos. The link is also in the description. You can also follow us on Facebook. Just search for musterxmedia. And until next time guys, bye for now.